Otherwise, Ayurveda is a deeper science. We have methods known as panchakarma or shodhana by which the tissue toxin bond can be gradually dissociated. It takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of time and patience, but it can be done. So once the tissue toxin bond is dissociated, what needs to be done is use suitable methods, choose suitable exit routes to flush these toxins out of the body. There are some things known as panchakarma procedures like Vamana, Virechana, Vasti, Nasya and Rakta Moksha. These are methods by which we can flush out the toxins from the body. It is not as easy as I am telling, it's not as simple. It requires a very focused effort and clear diagnosis before we choose to do any of these. Conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, conditions like ankylosing spondylitis, it leads to crippling conditions in age groups between 17-18 years to 35 years. Sometimes it happens between 25 years to 45 years. Some of the most productive time of someone's life, people are going through these conditions which are inflammatory in nature and autoimmune disorders by nature. Without proper detoxification, there is no foolproof solution for this. So Ayurveda, through Shodhana or Panchakarma, once detoxified, once you take out the toxins, what is remaining? It's not the healthy tissue, it is a weak tissue. It is a weak tissue, that's why toxins settle down there. So once you detoxify, you need to strengthen the system through something known as Rasayana Tantra. It is a sequence, it has a flow chart starting from diagnosis to the execution of the complete Panchakarma. Everyone need not undergo all the 5 Panchakarmas depending on the body type, depending on the areas where the toxins are loaded and causing disorders. Different Panchakarmas are chosen. This is about how we deal with the autoimmune disorders. This is a graphic representation of how to manage stress and when to start managing our health. If this is the graph which is representing the building up of stress or toxins, when the stress is building up initially, the mind and body gear up. When there is a stressful situation, you become more alert, more competitive, more productive, and you are in the best of your energy, you are in the fighting spirit. It makes you achieve a lot more. Winning over stress is a beautiful feeling, a sense of achievement. You solved a problem. All these requires rajasic or action again, and the energy has to come from inside. So when you can see the body and mind complex also become stronger with building up stress. How do you manage your health when the stress is building up? Initially, good lifestyle changes are sufficient to manage health. Waking up early in the morning, having proper dietetics, having a proper 5 to 8 hours of continuous unbroken nightly sleep. All these are necessary to manage health in the initial phase. We are all proud about our grandparents or ancestors who lived nearly to 100 years. All they did was they followed good lifestyle and good dietetics, and they are proud to say, we did not see a doctor, we did not take a medicine. Yeah, they stay here and most productive. But in today's ways of life, we slip into this inverse relation. Beyond this point, you can see stronger the effect of stress, weaker the mind-body complex becomes. That is when, along with lifestyle and dietetics, you may need medications. If you neglect at this stage also, till here, it is only a sense of discomfort or low energy levels or lack of focus, or there is a mental fog. Something, you can't explain, you can't give it a diagnosis, you can't name it, you can't name the disorder. It is low energy levels, you can see. But beyond this, you can name a disease. The stress becomes a disease. Stress starts in the mind, spills over to the body, gets focused in one organ or system and starts causing a disease. That is when you need medications, good diet, and good lifestyle. It's getting complex, isn't it? So, then comes the role of our Panchakarma here. So, beyond medications, a medical condition, if neglected, can or may turn into a surgically manageable condition. Still treatable, but maybe through surgery. Then, even beyond this, if you neglect, it is a terminal condition. People fire a question at me, can Ayurveda cure cancer? Oncologists are unable to answer this question. Cancer specialists are not able to answer this question. It's a very complex thing, I'll come to that. So, what happens? Initially, things are very easily curable. Then it becomes curable with effort because it involves doctor and medications, and it's getting complex. Then it becomes incurable yet manageable. There may be no cure for diabetes. From the times of Charaka Samhita, it's always maintained that diabetes has no cure, but it can be managed well with proper diet and proper lifestyle and simple medications. Then a manageable condition, not curable but manageable, like hypertension, like diabetes. A manageable condition, if mismanaged, becomes totally incurable. So this is the timeline of disorders, and at what stage, what are the combination of things that we need to adapt to, we need to do to keep ourselves at this peak performance level. It is possible through Ayurveda and Yoga. Some of the warning signs. As I said, illness may not be getting a diagnosis immediately. You may not be able to arrive at a name of a disease immediately. There are some warning signs. Loss of appetite. You are hungry but you don't feel like eating. Have you come across a situation like this? We feel hungry but we don't feel like eating. Loss of appetite. Persistent digestive disorders. Irregular sleep patterns. Changes in short-term and long-term memory. Sluggishness at work. Tremors or anxiety. Loss of libido. Loss of coordination in routine activities. You're always managing some things in your day-to-day work, but gradually you realize it is requiring a little more effort than before. So these are some of the warning signs of building up stress or building up toxins. Some of the dietetic guidelines. See, again, diet is a vast topic for discussion. Where the Vedic concept of diet comes into play is, in India, for example, I am just taking this scenario. In India, the dietetic pattern of people living in coastal areas is so contrastingly different from those living in a place like Rajasthan, which is arid and dry and hot. A Rajasthani diet cannot be implemented in a place like Bengal, which is humid all the time. So each pocket of the population which exists in different geographical zones have evolved different dietetic patterns. Our diet should be in line with the geographical place of existence. A South Indian diet, a Punjabi may be able to digest it within an hour or two. A Punjabi thali, you feed it to a person like me, I may take 2 days to digest it. So if there are so many contrasting or conflicting aspects which we are seeing, it is so tangible, how can we evolve a dietetic pattern which is purely based on calories only? We cannot. There are so many things which we do not have evolutionary experience in digesting it. So traditional dietetics played a very major role in forming or in arriving at a diet pattern which is supportive to health. locally available foodstuffs, seasonal fruits, seasonal vegetables. Now, all foods are available everywhere. All kinds of people have migrated to everywhere. So what do? We have lost touch with where we belong to or where the plants are, they are coming from. So it's a very difficult situation. So at least we should be specific about our dietetic patterns, at least with the geographical regions. So a calorie based diet is not a complete understanding of our dietetic pattern. It doesn't work that way. For example, in a very humid area, using mustard oil as the cooking medium would be the best thing to do, because the blockages created by humidity in the environment can be very, very easily cleared out by using mustard oil as the cooking medium. That's what was happening in a place like Bengal. In Rajasthan, which is dry and hot and arid, lots of ghee and butter and milk is used. Why? Because it is necessary you maintain the moisture, you maintain the nourishment to the deeper tissues. So how can we evolve a diet which is, we say salads are good, we say this is good. Everything has something good or bad. Food, medicine and poison can play each other's roles depending on, the dosage and intention. So we need to evolve dietetics. This is one thing which I find. I am coming, regularly to the USA to give lectures on Ayurveda, yoga and diet. What I find here is the lack of dietetic understanding according to geographical zones. This is something which we need to integrate the concepts of Vedic diet with different areas of the US. This is what I am, trying to focus on in my series of lectures. If you can keep in touch with me, I can, give more information on this, what needs to be done in which geographical zone or which body type. So these are some of the guidelines which are general, which are not very specific to the body type or the geographical origin. Food should be freshly prepared and warm. Any process of baking or cooking or roasting or frying or steaming, don't you think we are sterilizing food in the process? So it's a process of sterilization. Heating food or processing food, we may lose vitamins, but we will not lose minerals. You can't kill iron, you can't kill copper, you can't kill magnesium. They are heat stable. So that part is taken care of. So our food should be a right combination of cooked and uncooked. Little of salads and lot of fruits. Again, coming to fruits, fruits are meant to be eaten. But we drink it as juices, which is so very wrong. Which has given, I don't think people have written more about when not to eat fruits than about when to eat fruits. You get an article which says don't eat fruits on empty stomach. You get an article which with conviction says don't eat fruits after meal. Don't eat it in the evening, don't eat at night, don't eat then, don't eat now. And people get fruits and it rots on the table. Very sorry to say this is happening. Fruits are a complete package. God has made it in such a way, it comes with its own enzymes. Only thing is we need to chew it. Yeah? When we chew the food, it gets mechanically broken down and a lot of saliva is formed. Saliva is alkaline, which is sufficient to neutralize the acid in food. So when we chew the fruits thoroughly, the digestion of fruits are already happening. If we drink fruits as juices, fruits have acid, stomach has acid too. Why won't you get acidity? So these are simple things. So chewing fruits are better than drinking juices. Okay? You don't get all fruits at all times, you have only packeted juices, then what to do? There's a solution for that. Drink your fruit juice as if you are drinking hot tea, sip by sip, so that saliva is produced. Our digestion is so beautifully managed, like, the first compartment is alkaline, saliva, and it's alkaline. The second compartment is acid, the third compartment is alkaline again. If the process is fine, each successive step neutralizes the pH of the previous step. Here, we don't chew our food thoroughly, we don't chew the fruits, we start drinking fruit juices. All this can